Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a Thursday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, and we are coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the SR 1029 FM The Game remote studios. You can get social of me, very easy to do, at Rich Q on Q on X, TikTok, at Rich Q on the mic, and of course on IG at Rich Q on Q. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel on this very busy Thursday. Hope everyone had a good Sports Wednesday. You're enjoying your 29th of January 2006, and a lot to kind of dissect and dive into. Obviously, a little NFL heavy, a little rapid fire today on the air. We'll get into, I guess you can say, the hot news, if you will, or the hot rumors regarding one Giannis, who might be on the block. Your guess is as good as mine, but we're about a week away from the Super Bowl, and that's always interesting because you start to hear so much. We break down everything, and everyone's talking about the lines and the betting line and the money being moved, and where are some of these other offensive coordinators potentially going to land, this, that, and the other thing. And it's a busy time. It really is a busy time. And as I said, after the Super Bowl, we know the sport kind of dies down and we bleed right into March Madness and hot stove, and then away we go. But we take advantage of it nonetheless. And speaking of the NFL, I do have to get in to this conversation because it was just, sometimes you listen to some of these former players that talk, and some of these talking heads that are given a microphone. And as we know, the Lord giveth and the Lord can take it away like that. That's got to be the case with Emmanuel Acho, because the fact that he comes out on air, sitting down in front of a live microphone and starts talking out of his ass when it comes to Shedeur Sanders and how Shedeur Sanders should approach new Browns head coach Todd Monken, how Shedeur Sanders, where his mindset should be, how he should look at this guy. Oh my friggin' God, are you kidding me? To sit there and actually say, quote, if I'm Shedeur Sanders, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you won on an NFL level? You've got to be crazy with this comment. You've got to be crazy with this comment. You've got to have some serious friggin' issues up top, man. Like, it is arguably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of dumb things throughout the course of my life, especially in the world of sports talk radio, especially in the world of watching some of these talking heads or being on TV myself and doing radio for years. What the hell kind of advice? What are you doing? Like, what kind of advice is that? That's not even advice. That's just a stupid comment. That is a stupid mindset. And I don't like using the word stupid. And I don't like calling somebody stupid. But that is an asinine, jackass, clownish, dumb take. I mean, you're a former NFL player. Now, granted, I get it. You had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Like, and oh, by the way, are you trying to tell me that Shedeur Sanders has only had a cup of coffee in the NFL? We'll agree. Are you trying to tell me Shedeur Sanders has more equity built up in the NFL than Todd Monken? Is that where we're going? I mean, that's as embarrassing of a take as you can have. So basically now what you're saying for all young quarterbacks out there, if you're Emmanuel Acho, who basically, you talk about having a cup of coffee, a career in the NFL, I think a handful of tackles. But anyway, so if I'm a young quarterback, if I'm Jackson Dart, I'm not going to listen to John Harbaugh. If I'm Drake May, why the hell am I going to listen to Mike Grable? If I'm Caleb Williams, I'm not freaking listening to Ben Johnson. Not doing it. If I'm, Trevor Lawrence, Liam Cohen, get the hell out of here. I'm not doing that. If I'm Darnold, even though he's a veteran guy, right? But I'm still not listening to my head coach. You know where I'm going with this. Basically saying, quarterbacks don't listen to head coaches, especially young coordinators who become head coaches that are just learning on the fly, trying to build up a body of work and resume and equity. If I'm, insert whomever, Cam Ward, I'm not going to listen to Robert Salah. Like, I guess my point is you're a former player, and that's the kind of advice you are giving a young player. Like, you're supposed to set the friggin' example. You're supposed to set the example. I get it. I understand about talking heads. I understand about having that opinion, that harsh opinion, that, oven mitts kind of hot take. I get it. But that is just horrible, horrible, horrible advice. I mean, how do you not clap back at this guy? How do you not check him? How do you not call him out? I mean, thank God Asante Samuel with the pick six against Acho, basically saying, what the hell are you talking about? Did you buy this platform to spew nonsense? You are sending a horrible message with those comments. You really are. You're basically telling young quarterbacks in the NFL, do not listen to your head coach. Don't give your head coach any ounce of respect. Don't buy into anything that your head coach is saying. Don't trust your head coach. Like, what are you saying? There's 1,000 things wrong, but the most glaring and obvious issue is that you're talking about a first-time head coach who's going to have to build a rapport with his team. You and I already know that. I'm not talking about a guy like Jim Schwartz, who was already on the team, would have had an easier path to basically garnering the respect of the locker room, winning over the locker room. So yeah, Cleveland doesn't turn around. They didn't hire the next, Ben Johnson or Sean McVay or Mike Vrabel. They didn't do that. But they did hire a guy that the last time I checked helped Lamar Jackson elevate his game for a couple seasons, win, notch another MVP, throw for 44 touchdowns, run for a couple more, help elevate the Baltimore Ravens into a top tier, a solid, stout offense. And the other thing is you got this jackass up there in Acho who, there's no guarantee that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starting quarterback next year for the Browns. I mean, the fact that you're telling the quarterback who you believe might be the starting quarterback, don't listen to the head coach, but the rest of the roster should, is just pull his card. Pull his card. Get him off the air. Like, get him off the air. It's not even an asinine comment to make. It's just so wrong on so many different levels. It really is. It's just so wrong on so many different levels. You're coming at it at the wrong way, my man. We get it. Clicks, views. I get it. There have been a substantial amount of really good head coaching candidates in the NFL, right? And they haven't been head coaches before. Some have been, kind of the former coach types, right? Coordinators, and we've seen it work out. But this is a guy that turned Jackson from 2023 to 2025 in that offensive unit in a top tier offense. I mean, the freaking love and obsession with Shedeur Sanders is borderline comical and frightening at the same time with some of these talking heads. Like, again, I get it. It's Deion Sanders' kid, but if his last name is Smith or Johnson, no one gives a shit. And you look at the Browns right now and you look at what they have on their offensive side of the ball. They do have some talent. And the one thing I'll say about Shedeur Sanders, the kid doesn't lack confidence. He's got a chip on his shoulder, got a little edge to him. They got a good defense, but you're basically telling a young quarterback, if you have any sense, if you believe this kid can be the future going forward, then head coach be damned. I'm not going to listen to him. And young players are impressionable. I mean, this guy hasn't even been with the team for a day yet. Does Acho understand? The guy played in the NFL. Granted, didn't play at a high level, had a cup of coffee, a couple tackles here and there, but he did suit up on a Sunday. Doesn't he understand that it takes time to build rapport with a new team? It's absurd. It's absurd. And it just kind of highlights and pinpoints, once again, the type of offseason that Cleveland's having. You don't go on the air and suggest a quarterback basically not listen to a head coach, not listen to a new head coach. You just don't suggest players don't listen to coaches. You're questioning the guy's presence if he's going to be able to command a locker room. So now you put that out there, and already this guy's behind the eight ball because of your jackass comment, your asinine comments. And now you're pinpointing Sanders or anyone in that locker room. Why am I listening to him? Come on. Seriously? I just don't get it sometimes. I don't understand the line of thinking. I really don't. I don't. It's not even like it's just beyond an asinine comment. It's like, okay, you want this guy to fail going in right away? Just wow. I just don't get it. What have you won on an NFL level? Like, what the hell has Emmanuel Acho done? Like, who are you? Who are you? I mean, what are we doing here, folks? What are we doing? You're a practice squad player. You bounced around. I mean, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that you actually go on the air and you say that. It's embarrassing you go on the air and you actually believe that. It's just, some guys have to be checked. And thank God, Asante Samuel with the pick six, basically calling him out. Like, did you basically just buy a platform? I mean, you got to almost take it as comical at this point. You have to. You have to. You have to take it that it's just comical at this point. That these guys have this platform, the power to kind of say some of this stuff, and it's beyond ludicrous. It really is. I see some comments coming in. We'll get them. We'll rip them. And then, by the way, you got the whole Sean Payton situation, right? Where Sean Payton basically is coming out talking about Bo Nix's ankle injury. Like, what the hell's going on in Denver? And then you got the quarterback coming out and opposing his predisposed comment. Bo Nix is in a disagreement. No one really knows at the end of the day how Bo Nix got hurt. Like we heard, there was celebration. Then we heard it was in the game. After they beat Buffalo, celebration in the lot. No one knows exactly. 53 men probably know. But the fact that Sean Payton's coming out and just basically just shedding light on it and, talking about the surgeries. I mean, look, no one, listen, hopefully this kid's going to be healthy in another month or two, right? But I don't believe a head coach should be going out there talking about how many surgeries he's had in the past. I mean, does he know? Why are you making that public? You're talking about a franchise quarterback, man. And by the way, it's not fair. You don't have a right to bring up those comments. You don't. And Sean Payton's already been taking a hit, right? Because I mentioned I had no problem with the 4th and 1 call. I have a problem with the play call itself and the design. But then what does he do? He turns around and now we just start firing people, right? Let's start firing the offensive coordinator. And obviously, it just, Joe Lombardi out. And who knows, right? I mean, Sean Payton fired 3 Broncos coaches on Tuesday because Sean Payton was getting hammered for his decisions. You lose the franchise quarterback. You have to go to a backup. You don't run the football. You don't allow the kid to really throw the football in the game, aside from a bad call on 4th down, which you should have ran it. Now someone's got to take the lumps here. Someone's got to take a lump here. So let me just start firing guys. By the way, the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, who basically said, I knew the Turk was coming. I knew the business. By the way, not his first time being fired in this go-around, right? I mean, I don't know what the hell Sean Payton's doing there in Denver. I really don't. Bizarre. So you got the Acho stuff. You got the Sean Payton stuff. You also have this rumor coming down now that Giannis is on the block. And Milwaukee is going to entertain trade talks. And very interesting, man. Very, very, very interesting because you can kind of pick and choose the teams, right? And I mentioned this, I said it, and this is where it's going to bite the Philadelphia 76ers in the ass because they should have traded Joel Embiid when they had the chance. And they never did. And now, if you're thinking about, oh my goodness, here we go. Giannis is on the trade, the 76ers, right, are right there. Now, the question is, what are you giving up? Like, what are you giving up? So apparently, Giannis is ready for a new home. And we kind of already knew that, right? And that's why, every friggin' fan base, my Knicks included, you fire off the trade machine, the time warp machine, and here we go. Right now, it might be all hypothetical at the end of the day, but certainly worth noting, Milwaukee is not a good team right now. They're 18 and 27. They've had some injuries, some inconsistent play. We know, what's transpired over the last several years with their head coaches. They are rebuilding. They have a very uncompetitive roster outside a two-time MVP and former champ, right? They don't fully own their first-round pick until 2031. So it's likely they'll require some draft capital, high upside players to kind of reset their timeline. And again, considering right now, if you start talking about these mock trades, all right, what are we looking at here? Paul George is 51 million. VJ Edgecombe, who, oh, by the way, they drafted their first round draft pick, some more assets. Well, listen, Embiid has played well. He's played well of late, no doubt. He's kind of been on fire recently, but talk about the long term outlook because he's got issues with his knees, his wheels, the left knee. He's going to be 32 next season. He's going to enter the first of his 3-year max deal, the $188 million contract extension. Then you got Antetokounmpo, who's going to be in the first year of his 3-year, $175 million extension. He's dealt with some issues. So again, there's no return timetable for that right calf strain. Now, here's the problem. If these players don't kind of age gracefully, as we like to say, then you're kind of screwing yourself and you're painting yourself in the back of a corner. Now, you want to talk Giannis, Maxey, and Embiid. That's fun. Okay, fine. But look, every team now in the NBA is going to be picking up the phone. They're going to be calling the Milwaukee Bucks. Sure as hell, they're going to be calling the Milwaukee Bucks to see exactly, what's going to be the haul. What can we take? What can we get back? How do we make this? How do we make this work? And I understand that because he is a Hall of Fame player. He is a fantastic player. He is a game changer. He plays both ends of the floor 100%. Jordan Schultz reporting that the Eagles interview former Bucks offensive coordinator Josh Grisser for a second time on Wednesday. We're going to get in a little more of the Eagles because now there's a thought if they can't come up with an offensive coordinator, Sirianni is going to go back to play calling. So we'll dive into that as well. All right, 325, cranking up on a Thursday edition of On Cue. By the way, we always like to say thank you on a Thursday, a little gracias on a Thursday for all those that are connecting with us on the YouTube channel, liking, comment, subscribing. Greatly appreciated. Big time. We're also now on Millions. You can check us out on Kicks, Rumble, X, the YouTube channel, SR1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Very easy to get social with me as well, at Rich Quinones, Q on X and IG. And of course, check out the YouTube channel. But again, thank you to all the new subs. So we got a lot of NFL to get in. We got the Acho jackass comments. We got maybe a little friction brewing in Denver. We got the NBA, the trade rumors surrounding Giannis. We got a lot on the table to dive into over the next half an hour or so. Quick timeout. We'll get to some of your comments as always, as always, as always, as always. And then we'll open it up. And like I said, a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. I mean, just, there's coordinators, Diacho comments, not listening to Monken for Sanders, Peyton doing goofy stuff down there in Denver. I don't know what the hell is going on. Giants still looking for an offensive coordinator. Eagles looking for an offensive coordinator. A couple landing spots still available in the NFL. The Raiders, Arizona. We got to dive into it on the other side. We'll open it up. 326. Quick timeout. We'll be back in about 30. We want to get through your comments as well on this Thursday edition of On Cue. All right, 3:30 on a Thursday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Again, thanks for everyone checking us out on the YouTube channel, also the AUDACY app. You can search Coastal Sports Digital Network. You can catch us Monday to Friday. We're typically 4 to 6. Sometimes we fire off a little early, pull off a little early with overseas hoops duties and whatnot. Got some fights coming up as well. Let's get to some of the comments. You can hashtag On Cue. Sarge chimes in from Delaware. First and foremost, Q, I can't believe I actually listen to what Acho said. It absolutely made absolutely no sense. Now, Sarge with a lot of absolutelys. But I will say this, if I'm a young quarterback, I'm not going to put too much stock into what a journeyman player said. Fair, and a lot of absolutes from you, Sarge. That's fair, but you have to know that some of these players are extremely, impressionable. It's a dumb take. It's a dumb take, man. Because now, again, you're putting a new head coach right behind the eight ball. And, I think the trickle down right now, Monken gets that Browns head coaching job, right? And the Eagles and the Giants still need a head coach. I'm sorry, the Giants and the Eagles still need an offensive coordinator, right? A little Freudian slip. So the Giants are going to meet with JBC. They're going to meet with Jim Cooter. And now he is the current offensive coordinator with the Colts. He already interviewed with the Philadelphia Eagles for their OC job. So the Giants might come in and steal this guy. Now, again, the notion of a Kubiak, we already know, pencil it in, pretty much going to be a foregone conclusion. Even if Seattle loses the Super Bowl, he is a hot commodity. The Raiders should make a push for him. I mentioned that the Bucs offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard, he's going to interview with the Philadelphia Eagles for the second time. So again, by reports, he is a legitimate candidate. But still, to your comment, Sarge, I'm telling you, I just don't get it. It makes zero sense, man. I don't want to sit there and say that, whether you've had a cup of coffee in the NFL or not gives you the right to turn on the microphone and say some of the stuff you're saying. But I think it's absurd to suggest that a head coach who's a new head coach who has to build up equity with the franchise, the fan base, and more importantly, right, the prerogative of what? Buying into the roster and the players buying into him. And to suggest that the quarterback who you believe is going to be the franchise quarterback or the starting quarterback should not listen to him because he hasn't proved anything yet is just beyond absurd. I mean, it's ran its course. It's ran its course, right? I mean, it's just, come on. We're going to sit there and talk about, guy that was a fifth round draft pick, talking about a fifth round quarterback, by the way, like he's not going to learn from a guy that's had 25, 30 years of coaching experience. For him to say that, it's just asinine. It's beyond asinine. It's clickbait. It's just pure stupidity and it's dumb. New headphones, who this? AKA He 12 Man, AKA Heisman, AKA Steeler Nation, AKA Duval, also known as Vince, chimes in. Q Payton is a bozo for his moves. He lost that game and is blaming everyone else. Snake behavior. Yeah, I still don't believe that fourth down call lost a game, but the post behavior of Sean Payton, it's very immature. That's okay. You guys want to blame me? I'm going to blame somebody else and I'm going to start firing people left and right. Now, my problem, again, is not, you can fire who you're going to fire. That's fine. But you come out and you're talking about the quarterback and his injuries, it's a bad look. It's a bad look. And now you have your franchise quarterback that's recovering from an injury that hopefully, knock on wood, should be back on his feet in a couple weeks, maybe 2 months, 3 months, and you're clashing over an ankle injury. Why? Because you're talking about the player's injury history. Sean Payton has no right to do that. He just doesn't. He just doesn't. It's obvious if you are a Denver fan and you watched the season, you saw the impact that he had on this quarterback, and you saw the quarterback emerge into a franchise quarterback. Once his quarterback, when Bo Nix goes down, and we still don't know, we still have no idea when this really occurred. There's all these reports coming out. It was during the game. It was during the win against Buffalo. It was post-game celebration. A lot. I don't know. I mean, that would be absolutely crazy. Let's just say it was on the field because the kid was getting banged up left and right. His absence was a major blow to that Denver offense. And Jarrett Stidham, who hadn't played in the NFL in over 3 years, that is a tough ask. Tough ask. AFC Championship, right? Now, again, we had the turnovers that contributed to the team's defeat, and there's the run. But here's the problem I have. So you go and you get through the win against Buffalo, and Peyton confirmed in the press conference that Nick sustained a broken bone in his ankle. So the injury required surgery. He ruled him out in the remainder of the playoffs. I was shocked when I got the alert. But then he's commenting about his past injuries. It makes no sense. And it's like a remark regarding drafting Knicks if he had known about those issues. And that's kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we doing? And he backtracked it. He later clarified that, he had a condition making him predisposed to ankle fractures. Quote, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, he stated, stirring further confusion regarding the quarterback's health history. That's not good. It's not good. Like now, you've got to figure out, you're Sean Payton, you need to shut up and you need to figure out how to spin this and do damage control. You really do. And you got to basically kissy make up with your franchise quarterback. You have to. You have to. Because right now, these are very important offseason for the Denver Broncos. You got to start looking ahead. You got to fill out that coaching staff, do you not? And you got to have effective communication. And now there is a riff. When the players got to come out and hold an impromptu press conference and kind of spell or dispute what the head coach said, that is a rift. That is a problem. And now you've got it with the head coach and you got it with the franchise quarterback. So yes, to Vince's point, absolutely. Snake behavior. Snake behavior. Unacceptable. You can't do that. You're basically, you're throwing your quarterback, right, under the bus. Exactly what you're doing. Charles chimes in, Q, I can't believe it. You're 100% correct. This is absolutely ridiculous. I would never in my life turn on the microphone as a former player. This is my man, Charles James, as a former player and say exactly what Emmanuel said. You're right. You can't. It's just wow. And some of these guys say stuff that is just crazy, man. Like Brandon Marshall talking about Darrelle Revis from a technical standpoint better than Deion Sanders. And all the Deion fans are going nuts. But when you listen to how he broke it down, right, it's like, okay, not bad, not bad. But it wasn't asinine-ish. And I disagree with what Marshall is saying, right? And, Revis got the name Revis Island. Okay, no one threw his way. But once you threw it to Deion and he picked you off, he was housing it, right? But, there was an art to what Deion Sanders was doing. But Sanders backers come out and all of a sudden, Brandon Marshall doesn't know what he's saying. He's got CTE, he's a jackass, he's a clown, blah, 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 blah. Now, I say that tongue in cheek, but that's kind of what they're saying about Acho right now because of those comments. Nick and Wildford, Q, I've coached for 25 years. There's absolutely no way I would want a young player to not listen to me. And if someone told the player to not listen to me, they would have some issues. Nick and Wildford, 25 years, football, high school, and baseball, by the way. Yep. Yeah, it's just it's kind of a cringeworthy comment. And Asante Samuel basically just dunked on him. Just pick six. Hey, did you buy that platform? Can you hook me up? Early bird gets to one of them. Yes, man. So who gets Giannis? I say the Knicks make a blockbuster trade with Cat to get Giannis. I don't think the Knicks. I think Cat's stock has gone down. I have no idea. And you got to remember too, right now you can pretty much tag a bunch of teams. The Warriors. Again, the Sixers are going to dangle out Edgecombe assets to Timberwolves. I think the Knicks missed the boat for Giannis. I do. I really believe, Miami Heat. And now you're going to have 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that are going to be lumped in, and it's going to be, okay, who can outdo you? I told you last year I would have traded Karl Anthony Towns. I said that during the playoffs. Karl Anthony Towns is a nice player, but he's soft and he settles for too many threes, and I can't have that. He's not a game changer. He's not a rim protector. He can't play consistently both ends of the floor. He can't. So here's the thing. In order to make that trade work financially, then basically the Knicks are going to have to give up two of their, best players in Cat or Bridges or OG. And I don't know if, again, the players got to be interested in wanting to play for the team. And that was all the talk during the offseason, if you remember. The only team linked with Milwaukee in that regard for a trade was the Knicks, and nothing came to pass. And Milwaukee opens up the season, and they keep Giannis, and here we go. And as I told you, they're 18-27. They don't have a very competitive roster. They don't. Now, you've had a bunch of injuries, including what he's dealing with. The roster doesn't appear to be very good. They're not going to win a championship, even if he was healthy. So, yeah, you want to get something back. And that's why Milwaukee, like any smart franchise with an all-time great player, understanding, let's start listening to offers. As much as it might pain us to trade him, he's meant so much to the franchise. He's taken us to certain heights, winning a championship, a model citizen, a pro's pro. Yeah, we also have to understand in a couple more years, his body's going to start breaking down. What can we get for him? Now, sure, as a Knicks fan, with the Knicks being 29-18, second in the Eastern Conference, a couple games behind the first place Detroit Pistons, yeah, I would do that move in a heartbeat. I would do it. Because if you're talking about, if I keep Towns right now, and objectively now with the Knicks, Brunson, Hart, Town, Bridges, OG, they arguably have probably the best and deepest starting five in the association. But if I'm trading for a player like Giannis, and I know that I have to give up a lot, then I'm breaking that up, risk to reward. Now, the plus side, I'm landing a two-time NBA MVP, an NBA Finals MVP, a future Hall of Famer that I know is going to give me 25 and 16, 28 and 16 on any given night. I'm not so sure I'm getting that from Karl Anthony Towns. It's just not, his game is, it's not that. It isn't. And it's frustrating to watch because he seems like a nice kid and he is talented, but I wasn't, enamored. I wasn't blown away when the Knicks pulled the trigger. I just wasn't. And I got very frustrated during the playoffs last year watching him play because everyone was saying, okay, well, wait, are you going to get, a couple years ago, 26, 27 points? He's not that guy anymore. The way he was playing in Minnesota, he was okay settling for those outside shots. He didn't want to put his ass on the low block. And in the Eastern Conference, it's a little more physical. Giannis will do that. He'll roll to the rim. He can shoot. He can put it on the floor. He can attack. He plays both ends. That's what I want. And that takes a ton of pressure off Brunson. Because I need to know in the fourth quarter, if Jalen Brunson's shot is not falling, who's going to step up? I already know who's going to step up. So now all of a sudden, I'm drawing in that double. We're kicking it out. We've got a little more motion. We're getting up and down the floor. I know that I'm going to get my 28, 29, 30 a night from this guy. And plus, he's going to give you 5 or 6, 7 dimes. He's going to give you 10 or 11 assists. He's going to get to the line. And I know he plays hard and he's not soft. Now, he's a year older than Cat. Okay. But I will take my shot, no doubt. I would do that. Yeah. Now, I'm going to have to break it up. But you got to live with that. You got to live with that. Look, think about the run the Knicks had last season. What were they missing? Cat was getting in foul trouble. He was banged up, inconsistent play. They get to the NBA Finals with Giannis. They get to the NBA Finals. They do. Losing to Indiana was a gut punch, and then choking in the fashion in which they did, which I told you if they lost the series, Tibbs was out and he got fired. The Eastern Conference doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me. I'm looking Detroit. That's a young team. It's a nice story. Boston still has their issues. Toronto, Cleveland, The Sixers, It doesn't scare me. You make a move like this. Detroit's having the type of starting season that Cleveland did, and we saw what happened in the playoffs with Cleveland. Detroit is still a young team. They got to learn how to win. Out to a great record, 34-11. They got big-time players. We're seeing it with Durant. We're seeing it with the center. We're seeing it with Cade Cunningham. I think he's having a career year averaging like 26. Harris is giving them production. Robinson's giving them production. But they're a young team. I'm not worried about these other teams in the Eastern Conference if I was the Knicks. But I make a move like this, puts me right over the hump. All right, 346. A lot of comments coming in. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Keep it locked in. Thursday edition of On Cue right here. Powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Get ready with tea. Three Brooks Bourbon. And, of course, Played Against Sports. 2 locations, Deptford and Mount Laurel. All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's get to some comments. 347 on a Thursday edition of On Cue. Tom chimes in. Q, this whole narrative about the Eagles' offensive job not being an ideal spot is absolutely just ludicrous. I mean, think about this. The talent on the roster is legit. I'll give you credit. You have said that. And I think this front office is tired of what transpired over the season and then losing in which the fashion that they lost. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance. I mean, again, everything you're saying is nothing new. So my whole belief or my opinion on the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to the offensive coordinator position is worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario, if you can't get a guy in that you want, Nick Sirianni calls the plays, and that's not going to be beneficial to the Philadelphia Eagles. My argument, again, was that they do have a good roster. They do. They have talent. Like I would be an Acho. I would be a fool to come on the air and sit there and tell you that they don't have talent. They do. Now, it's all subjective what you believe or what you think about the quarterback. Some people like Jalen Hurts. Some people are indifferent about Jalen Hurts. Some people don't like Jalen Hurts. But I mentioned this the other day. When you peel the curtain back, it's pretty simple with Jalen Hurts. The numbers are there and the body of work is there. And that's all you're asking for. And he actually played better if you go statistically than last year. And last year they won the Super Bowl. Now, some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to admit to that. They want to sit there and say, well, wait, there's all these extraneous variables. There's just these X factors, one being number 26, who ran for 2,000 yards and a great offensive line and weapons. And the list goes on and on and on. So if you take Hurts out of the equation, but we know he's going to be under center, you've got an offensive line. You've got wide receivers. You've got weapons. You've got a tight end. So then the question is, why are they so, why has it been a difficult time? Why are the Eagles having such a hard time hiring or finding, I should say, a new offensive coordinator? And to me, it still stems back to the one constant, the one elephant in the room, and that's the head coach. And I could be way off base. I could be absolutely way off base. But I don't know who wants to put up with this guy and his friggin' antics and running up and down the sideline and barking with the fans and telling them to get the hell out and butting heads with A.J. Brown and not holding his quarterback accountable. I don't know. I just think, the perception, the optics are, maybe I don't want to deal with that. Maybe I don't want to deal with that. Maybe I just, want to go somewhere where I can help a young quarterback be respected, have respect for the head coach that I'm working under, i.e., a day ball going to the Titans with Robert Saleh, who his stock has risen now because of that. He's done a hell of a job, or did a hell of a job with the 49ers in that defense after falling flat on his face through no fault of his own with the Jets, even though he wasn't ready to be a head coach. Now he's got that second shot. Yeah, it just like I said, I don't really know. I really don't know. But ultimately, you would suspect that they'll figure it out. They're too smart of an organization to not figure it out with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. I mean, that's fair, right? I've been hearing for several years about Riley and the Heat landing the big free agent, but it never happens. I think it's time we admit Pat has lost his fastball. I think it's hard to say that, and I'm going to tell you why, because there's a couple factors in that. So it's different now in the NBA when we're talking about landing the big fish and the free agent. I think that if you are Miami and you are the leading suitor, it does make sense. I mean, it does, because they have come up frequently over the last several days. And you've got a player that is ready to find a new home. Now, think about it. What are you giving up? It's all about the package deal, right? And I think what Miami did to kind of push back on what you're saying, they didn't, maybe they, sometimes you hear rumblings and grumblings, right? It could be a year out, it could be 2 years out, where you start to see the handwriting on the wall and you realize, man, this coach is not happy where he's at. This quarterback's not happy where he's at. This player's not happy where he's at. So as a franchise, you keep that in the back of your mind. The seed has been planted. So what I'm doing now, and I'm just, again, hear me out. If I'm Miami, if I'm Pat Riley, I'm like, okay, wait, let's hang on to a couple of these assets. Maybe he becomes available. Now, all of a sudden, we jump on it, and the timing is right for Miami. Because they do, if you've watched them over the last several years and followed the NBA, they have a very intriguing batch of young talent and draft selection. So for a fact, their best offer is going to be a package deal with Tyler Hero, right? The kid Ware. You got tradable first-round picks in 2030 and 2032. But again, remember too, the player everyone's coveting is still sidelined with a calf injury. So any team, that's another conversation. Any team that's going to or wants to acquire Giannis, you also have to be healthy, or I should say you have to be confident, comfortable with his health status, and I got to resign him. So it's not as easy as people think. I mean, I put up his numbers before I came on the air. He's got a $62.7 million player option for 2027, 2028 offseason. Then he's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2028. Look, he was a beast a couple of years ago. He still is a beast. He was a beast when he led Milwaukee to an NBA championship. He averaged like 30 and 10. He was a monster. Why would you not want a player of that caliber on your roster. But remember, you're going to have to subtract to add because of his greatness. And in the NBA, as you know, it's all about the package deals, or it's always about getting that third team involved, which is always a pain in the ass, right? They always, it's just so hard to get that third team involved. They won at Lillard before the Bucks trade. They ran a couple different times. They didn't really have a championship team with or without Greek Freak. Yeah, I mean, I think the Knicks wanted Damian Lillard too. The Sixers wanted everyone wanted Damian Lillard. Let's come on. The Sixers, I think, dropped the ball 1,000 different times on that. I mean, all I was hearing is Lillard. Here we go. That's all I heard. Connect the dots. Here's a package deal. What are we going to give up? Package deal. A lot of teams miss out on some of these players. But my point is that if they have the assets, the timing might be perfect. And if you're Milwaukee, you are in a rebuild. You want a star in return for a star. You want some chips. You want a little equity. And I need draft picks. And that might be the landing spot. Golden State is also another compelling team because all we keep hearing, right? And they put up 140 the other night. All we keep hearing, they've actually played well this season. I think they're 5 or 6 games over 500. Make a run. You've got a window left with Curry. And now what you're going to get, the more teams come into the play, it's a bidding war. It is a bidding war. That's all it is. And I think, listen, if Milwaukee, Anthony Slater from the mothership reported that the quicker Milwaukee acts, league executives believe the better chance Golden State has to win the bidding war. So, and he broke it down brilliantly. The team's first round picks. So you've got first round picks in 2028, 2030, 2032. That's all going to be on the table. Also, Butler, right? I mean, his name's got to be on the table. And, you're packaging, again, I know they want to kind of keep Jimmy Buckets in the fold. And obviously, you dealt with that big loss. He's down with the ACL, season ending. It stinks. He's a very good player. He's a fun player. He's a charismatic player. I've always loved Jimmy Butler. I thought he got a raw deal in Philly because he just, Brett Brown was a clown. But be that as it may, Milwaukee is going to field offers and they're going to try to get the best package in return. That's all that is. That's all there is. And Golden State's been trying to move some players since the offseason. So you got a hot name right now in the NBA on the block. A very hot name. Monday Marcus chimes in on a Wednesday. Q, I didn't get to listen to Acho's comments, but I think anyone kind of giving young advice to a quarterback, and if the quarterback's kind of dumb enough to take it, that's on them. Yeah, but see, the comments were dumb. I'm not going to sit here and say the quarterback is dumb. That's not what I didn't say that. The comments from Acho were they're just so misinformed. They are. And you've got a young, impressionable quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and I kind of think Shedeur Sanders is not a dumb kid. So just because Emmanuel Acho said, hey, man, do me a favor, don't listen to your new head coach, I don't think Sanders is going to go back and have a conversation with his dad because for a fact Deion's going to sit there and say, don't listen to what this jackass said. My whole point of contention is that you can't go in the air and say that. Like, it's bad advice. And you're a former NFL player, whether we want to dispute or discuss or debate your cup of coffee merits in the NFL, that's fine. I understand it's all about clickbait. I get it. But it's just, I don't know, man. It bothers me because doing what I do, I didn't play in the NFL, but I like to think I know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I would never say something like that. And I didn't play in the NFL, never suited up, but I'm a talking head. I create my content. I've been in sports talk radio for years. I put the time in, the energy. I'm just not going to spew something like that on the air. He's coming on the air, being a former NFL player with the microphone, with the platform that he has, and he's telling Shedeur Sanders, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you ever won on an NFL level? Well, again, it's so wrong on so many different levels because Shedeur Sanders hasn't done diddly in the NFL. And you're talking about an offensive coordinator who's now the head coach that I think can help an offense thrive, especially with a quarterback that wants to be a gunslinger, has a little chip, a little athleticism, wants to throw the ball down the field, insert whomever. And then add to the fact that Todd Monken, look what he did for 2 seasons with Lamar Jackson. So it's like, come on. Like, what do you say it to say it? Ugh. Giants are requesting to interview Colts passing game coordinator Alex Tanney for their offensive coordinator position. He was with the Giants for a cup of coffee for a couple seasons. Joe chimes in from Philly. Q, when it's all said and done, who do you believe is going to take the Raiders head coaching job? I already told you. I think it's Kubiak. I really do. I think it's Kubiak. I think Tom Brady is going to make a strong push for him. And I told you my reasons why. They have $100 million in cap space. You have Genty. You have Bowers. You have Crosby. I mean, the Raiders might be able to turn this around fast. And you got Tom Brady. And you're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. That's not a bad spot to be if you're a first-time NFL head coach. There's going to be some patience there. And there's going to be some growing pains. But the Raiders, now I'm not going to suggest that the Raiders can turn around and do what the New England Patriots did, because we saw the year 1 and 2 progressions with Drake May. So whoever's under center, let's just insert Mendoza, and you've got a guy that understands offenses, skill, talent, position players. Look at what he did with Seattle, averaging about 36 in the playoffs, averaging about 30 throughout the season. Look what he did with a veteran in Sam Darnold, right? And then you got Tom Brady. You got the GOAT whispering in your ear. Now, Joe Brady would have been a great. Joe Brady to the Raiders would have been perfect too, but Joe Brady's sticking with the Bills because that is the smart, safe play by Buffalo. But Kubiak, I'm high on Kubiak. And if he goes to the Raiders, I believe the Raiders can be a much more competitive team. I really do. Kansas City's getting older. I mean, they are. Cincinnati still has to fix their defense, right? We don't know what's going on with Cleveland. We don't know what's going on with Baltimore, even though you've got the quarterback and the running back. Let's see what happens with that coach, right? And Jesse Minter. Pittsburgh's in flux. We don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. They bring in McCarthy. The Mahomes injury with Kansas City that I mentioned. Denver, still a young team rising. The Chargers can't really trust them. Buffalo is still Buffalo, but there's no reason why the Raiders can't be a competitive football team. There's absolutely no reason. I'm not going to tell you that they're going to be the 31-0 losing to the Eagles, 34-10 against the Giants, but maybe 31-17 loss against the Chargers hung around. Maybe 23-21 loss against the Texans hung around. Beating the Chiefs. Hanging around against the Denver Broncos. I think again, the other thing you have to watch when you have a hot candidate like a Clint Kubiak, and he's having a substantial amount of success with Seattle, and the coup de grace, the cherry on the top, is to go out on top and win the Super Bowl. And that offense clicking and humming, and it's like it's that sexy first date. Here we go. You're going to bring some players with you. You can do that. Like, let's not forget, right? You can turn around, and I'm like, wait a second. Here we go. Who wants to come with me? And I'll tell you this, could it be a Rashid Shaheed, right? You're talking about speed. You're talking about the Raiders restarting at the quarterback position. This kid has been wonderful since they acquired him at the trade deadline. John Schneider did a hell of a job. I think he's a little more than a wide receiver. We know what he can do with special teams. He's probably the best kick and punt returner in the friggin' league. They work together. So here you go. Come, let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. Now, here's another name to watch. And you're probably going to be like, are you kidding me? They already got a running back. Well, Kenneth Walker. Seattle's going to do their damnedest to bring back Walker. And I'm just not talking about next season. I'm talking about beyond. 25, his best, his healthiest, most productive season. You got the duo back there, right? And then obviously the other back tears his ACL. I call him Chardonnay. But he's a very good running back. So I don't know if he's going to be ready at the start of next season. But I'll tell you what, Walker can sign elsewhere. And he would be anywhere where Kubiak is. He's going to be a great fit because he understands the rotation. So now you've got that Genty Walker 1-2 punch, kind of like what Seattle had. So that's why I think it's pretty much all in if you're the Raiders on Kubiak. I think it's the worst kept secret in the NFL. I would be shocked if they went in a different direction. I would just be absolutely shocked. It just makes too much sense. It makes way too much sense. Especially, again, I'm telling you, man, the fact that you've got Genty, Crosby, Bowers, who am I missing? Mendoza that they're going to draft, right? Genty, Crosby, Bowers, and you got $100 million in cap space. The Raiders, I actually take it a step further. Even with Mendoza as a rookie, you might see the Raiders win 7-8 games next year. You might see the Raiders on the fringe of a playoff spot late. Well, we fired off early. That's why. You missed it, Luca. Sorry. I'm not sure why everyone is hating the Monken hire. I think it's a smart move. If it works, it's genius. If it doesn't, no sweat. You fire him in 2 years and get your coach to fit whatever WB quarterback, I think you mean. They draft. Yeah, but that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to do that. You don't want to fire him after a year or two. I think the Browns are looking at this where we need to get it right. We need to get it right. We can't just keep going through head coaches and head coaches. It's not a good look. It's just not. When you keep retreading, never a good thing. And I'll tell you something else. Jim Schwartz, we talk about Sean Payton kind of acting like a petulant child. There's a reports that Jim Schwartz, when he was told he didn't get the Browns head coaching job, basically, got pissed off and left the building. Like, grow up, man. I mean, that's, be a friggin' man, right? He was expected to be Cleveland's next head coach, and now he's looking for a job. And again, he's a very good defensive coordinator, and they want to retain him under Monken. But again, if he doesn't want to be there, I don't want you there. That's a problem. And Jim Schwartz, now you got the other landing spots, and I'll throw it out there. I don't think Kingsbury gets another crack at being a head coach. McCarthy, retread already gone. Harbaugh, gone. Tomlin, we know he's not coming back. McDermott most likely is taking a year off. Here, connect the dots. You stick Schwartz in Arizona. Listen, if he's so high on being a head coach and Arizona decides, well, we want to bring in someone that has play calling experience, defensive side of the ball, I should say, head coaching experience. Well, here you go. Jim Schwartz. And then you just wrap it up, and now, boom. Then you got to figure out what we already know about the Raiders, and every job in the NFL is filled as far as the head coaches. So, it's just, you're snubbed. I get it. It happens. I would have loved to have brought Jim Schwartz over to New York as defensive coordinator. I would have done that in a heartbeat. He's a head case, but he's aggressive. I'll take him in a heartbeat. And his contract's not going to be enough to keep him in Cleveland. It's just not. I mean, think about it. He is holding all the cards here. He really is. I mean, here's another. Listen, stick him in Pittsburgh with McCarthy. Right? Because he's going to go through that coaching staff. Boom, boom, boom. I think he fired Austin, their defensive coordinator. And he was with Pittsburgh for 4 or 5 years. So you got an offensive mind, plus you got a defensive mind that's a hothead and a head case. Here we go. Or I'll give you another one. How about San Francisco? They just lost their defensive coordinator who took the job with Tennessee and Robert Saleh. So now you can work with arguably one of the best head coaches. Yes, I know I thought he was on the hot seat, but you can arguably work with one of the best head coaches in the NFL. The Raiders, that's a landing spot too. I think Arizona's the fit though. I think Arizona, unless Arizona pulls a trigger on Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's brother, then obviously now you're talking, I'm going to go to the Raiders as a DC. I'll go to San Fran as a DC. I'll go to Pittsburgh as a DC. So I didn't think about that until someone actually just brought it up. Yeah, we mentioned him. Two-headed monster. Two-headed monster. Absolutely. Yeah, who brought that up? Oh, Franchise brought that up. He brought that up on X. Yeah. I mean, Schwartz is a very good defensive coordinator. And to Vince's point, I think we want instant gratification, right? And when you have a young head coach or an unproven head coach, you also have to build a very good coaching staff around him. You have to. And if you don't, you're in trouble. That's a major, major problem. And that's a point of emphasis. And that's one thing, and I'm trying to, and I know his schedule has been a little quirky, but I'm trying to get James Hasty on, who does a great job with CPAS, the Coaching Performance Assessment Systems, where it basically grades all the coaches in the NFL. I mean, he knows these coaching staffs like the back of his hand. He basically came on the air during Back Your Play last year and predicted, Kansas City was going to get thrashed by the Eagles. He had Green Bay running all over Dallas a couple years ago in the playoffs, because at the end of the day, it's all about coaching. It really is. Yeah, you need the roster and you need the players, but if coaching and the players go hand in hand. Am I drafting the right players? Am I drafting the right talent? Am I drafting the right guys? If I'm not, and I got a bad coaching staff, i.e., like I saw with the Giants a couple years ago, like with the Jets, like with the Browns, like with the Tennessee Titans, you're not going to win many football games. So yeah, it does go hand in hand, guys. I know we forget about that. Marty chimes in, Q, I actually listened to that soundbite. I can't believe he literally said that. What the F is he thinking? I have no idea. I just, like I said, I would not go on the air and tell a quarterback not to listen to a first-time head coach. I would not go on the air and tell a quarterback not to listen to any head coach. I wouldn't. Sean chimes in, Q, what do you think Tampa Bay is going to do with their coordinator spots? Well, did you read the latest? Little buzz going on McDermott to Tampa Bay. But I don't think McDermott wants to go from being a head coach and then becoming a coordinator. Like McDermott, to me, will probably take that year or two off. And then if a job becomes available, we'll start to connect the dots and say, here you go, Sean McDermott to boom, boom, boom. Like, I don't even want to forecast because it's January. Like, if you're looking right now into the future, and if you're looking at all these head coaches that are in place, let's pretend it's July, August. Who's going to be on the hot seat? Who's going to be on the hot seat? So you got New England not happening. You got Buffalo not happening. Miami not happening. Aaron Glenn, we talked about. Yes, definitely. I think next year he's fired. So you got Aaron Glenn. Pittsburgh, no. Baltimore, no. Zach Taylor and Cincy, maybe two. What about in the AFC South? I'm not seeing it. What about in the AFC West? I don't think Sean Payton's on the hot seat. He just took Denver to the AFC Championship. Yeah, he said some goofy stuff about the quarterback and his injuries, Harbaugh with the Chargers, no. Andy Reid, no. The Raiders, first-time head coach, no. NFC East, let's keep Sirianni in there. There's 3. What about the NFC North? I mean, LaFleur, we thought he was going to be out. Let's just say we'll give him one more year. That's 5 or 4. Johnson, no. Minnesota, no. Or maybe question mark. Dan Campbell, I don't think so. I mean, keep going down the list. So you'll have 4 or 5, quote, coaches that we're going to have under the microscope come August in the summertime, which I can't wait when it friggin' warms up. Hell, what we're dealing with now. And then we will start to say, well, McDermott's name, Sean McDermott, he's out there. McDermott's right there. Took a year off. Here we go. Played, coached a lot of games, right? DG chimes in. Q, I'm a big-time Dolphins fan. I'm not really a big-time Pats fan, haha. But the fact that Belichick's not a first-ballot Hall of Famer makes me lose a lot of respect for the voters. I mean, everyone is... Everyone's going back to the Spygate and the Deflategate. That's all that is. That's all that is. We talked about it at length yesterday. That's all it is. You had a couple of voters that they don't like Belichick. You have voters that don't like players. Terrell Owens shouldn't have waited. Terrell Owens was a Hall of Famer. Sometimes guys have to wait. Kenny Stabler waited 20-something odd years. Veterans Committee, they finally put in the snake after he passed away. So sometimes it's just it's timing, and there's a bias against you. And I talked yesterday a lot about Eli. Eli's going to get in one day, but there is a perception about Eli with his career record and a couple little runs here and there, but kind of like what I said with Belichick. If you can't tell the history of the NFL without these guys, then they're not Hall of Famers. If you need them in there to tell the history, to me, I believe you're a Hall of Famer. Like Kenny Stabler had a very interesting career. Kenny Stabler was, almost written off. He was almost written off. But then, he found his footing. He didn't put up monster numbers in his career. I mean, Kenny Stabler had more interceptions than touchdown passes. He threw for under 30,000 yards, but look when he played, the era in which he played. But the snake, and the reason they called him the snake, he was running around making plays, ad-libbing, winning big-time playoff games. His career arc was with the Raiders. Then he bounced around a little bit with the Oilers, then the Saints, and then he retired. He had to wait a long time. He was a second-round draft pick in the 68 draft. But when the snake was out there performing, doing what he was doing with the Raiders and all those great teams, and Madden, and, Casper and Branch and Biletnikoff and Clarence Davis making plays, I mean, he was a hell of a quarterback. But for some reason, he was also the fastest quarterback to win 100 games as a starting quarterback. He did it in 150 games. And that passed Johnny Unitas. And you're going to tell me that Johnny Unitas is not a Hall of Fame quarterback? Kenny Stabler, it took him a couple years to kind of find his footing. 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, here we go. But for some reason, the voters, they just did not feel that he was Hall of Fame worthy. And he had to wait, and he had to wait, and he had to wait. And then finally his day came. Now, I say all that to say this. There are debatable cases. There are debatable cases. But Belichick is not a debatable case. Bill Belichick won 8 Super Bowls, 6 with the Pats, 2 with the Giants. He was the architect of those great defensive teams. Don't give me the crap. What did he do in Cleveland? He won 11 games and went to the playoffs. Oh, by the way, when Brady went down, he won 11 games. And they missed out on the playoffs. Remember when Brady got hurt? They still won 11 games. Like, that's a hell of a coaching job. They were the first 11-win team since 1990 to miss the playoffs. Matt Castle, which was crazy. I mean, people forget Brady goes down very early in the season. Horrible. You lose him. Here comes Matt Castle. 11 games, and they missed out on the playoffs. That is a fantastic job. Brady threw what? 7 passes that year? There's no debate. And it's what these voters are doing is they're punishing it. And I'm not going to compare the apples and oranges. I'm not, because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole with you guys. But we know everything that Pete Rose did off the field was a no-no. Was a no-no. We know that. And a lot of the voters made him pay. Cheating's cheating, right? A lot of the voters made him pay. Now, he betted on the sport. That's a no-no. But you can't tell me, how do you tell the history of baseball without Charlie Hustle? Same things with Bill Belichick. Same thing with Bill Belichick. How much longer do you think Andy Reid will keep going? Got to assume another ring, and he has to consider it. No, I don't know. I really don't know. Andy Reid, I think he's built up such equity with the Kansas City Chiefs. They couldn't wait to get rid of Andy Reid. 42-7 against the Giants. Philadelphia Eagles closing out the season years ago. And, Andy Reid, pardon me, Andy Reid is, I think, 67, 68. Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame head coach. I mean, Andy Reid can go 0-17 next year, and he's still getting in the Hall of Fame. Unequivocally, not even debatable. Now, if you're asking me how much longer do I think he will coach, sometimes you have a season like Kansas City had, and it can kind of, as goofy as it sounds, it's humbling, but they've kind of, I don't want to say cleaned house, but they've overhauled their coaching staff. And they had such a great run over the last decade, always getting in these conference championships and getting to Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls, but they've had turnover. Right? I think what it's going to do now is kind of give Andy Reid a little juice, a little energy. You lose the way they lost this year, and you lose Patrick Mahomes, your heart and soul of that franchise, your franchise quarterback, your leader, your MVP, your Hall of Famer. You don't want it to end like that. You want to run it back. Now, they still need pieces on the field, no doubt. But I think Andy Reid's going to be reinvigorated. I really do. I really do. I mean, think about the guy that they brought back, right? Who'd they bring back? One of his consiglieres, if you will, right? Bieniemy. That's his guy. He flourished under Andy Reid. They can bounce stuff off each other. So I can see Andy Reid coaching 2, 3, 4 more years. I can. I really can. Andy Reid loves the game of football. He's a Hall of Fame head coach. I think Reid will have to be fired. Coaching is his yes. Agree. Yep, he got hurt by Bernard Pollard. Yes. Bernard Pollard. Yes. Wasn't that correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that the low questionable, right? They went, I always thought they went at his knees. I remember that, right? He kind of didn't he come shooting in? Yeah, once Brady went down, that was it. I think they nicknamed him the Patriot Killer. Yeah. But of course, Brady bounces back, and, as we know, the rest is history. But sometimes when you lose, like Kansas City lost, and they lost a lot this season, you want to come back with a vengeance. And I think they're going to. Sal chimes in. Q, excellent thoughts and opinions on Monken. I think given some time and some players around him, I think he's going to be a hell of a coach. And to your point about Acho, I have no idea what the hell he was talking about. Yeah, I mean, he's getting killed. Asante Samuel slam dunked him. I mean, it was a pick six. Crushed him. Crushed him. It's just, it was the most comical statement I've ever heard in my life. You know, if you guys are just tuning in, basically Emmanuel Acho came out and told Shedeur Sanders, you know, don't even listen to Todd Monken. What has he proven? Oh my goodness. I mean, you're basically telling a fifth round draft pick to ignore a guy that has 25, 30 years of coaching experience. That's sound advice. Yeah. But hey, whatever gets you the eyeballs. All right, couple minutes to play with on a Thursday. We'll squeeze in a couple more comments before we get out of here. Quick timeout. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, 3 Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Got a lot of Giannis NBA. I thought we weren't allowed to talk NBA. But that's okay. We'll get some NBA comments in as well. Some stuff on the Broncos. Obviously, the Super Bowl is right around the corner. You know, the lull, right? The week and everything going on. And then next week and the media day and the goofy questions that are asked and just the, you know, thankless job of being there and just, you know, just it gets, it's like, all right, what are we doing? Why are we in here? Like, I hate that you have that lull. Like, I want the game to be played, but then you get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you got to deal with Saturday, all the festivities. Then you got to deal with Sunday, where you have 7 hours of friggin' pregame. Just get me to the friggin' game. Please get me to the friggin' game. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, welcome back. 4:30 on a Thursday edition of On Q. As always, Rich Quinones here. Don't forget at Rich Q on Q, X, IG, Rumble, Kicks. Also, you can check us out on SR 1029 FM The Game. I did mention the AUDACY app, also millions.com. A couple guys wanted to, wanted me to comment on the Kansas City Star. I guess it was the Kansas City Star reporter. I'm not even going to try to. Vahi Gregorian of the Kansas City Star. So he gave his reasoning for not voting for Belichick. So we all know that Bill Belichick is a Hall of Famer. We all know Bill Belichick belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We all know that he should have got in. We all know his time is coming. So Vahi Gregorian of the Kansas City Star revealed himself. I give him credit because now the eggs on X are going to come out, the faceless wonders, as one of the voters who was against the hoodie. First ballot enshrinement for the hoodie. So he directed his opinion towards the voting process and curious selection dynamics based on illogical candidate groupings. Okay. He said he didn't vote against Belichick or Patriots owner Robert Kraft. Now, this is what he said, quote, I voted, and by the way, before I read this, and I'm sorry, this is what I mentioned to you yesterday, what Mike Sando brought up which was fascinating when it came to the senior candidates. So this is what the Kansas City Star reporter said. I voted for the 3 senior candidates, Ken Anderson, Roger Craig, and LC Greenwood. All worthy of consideration, right? And I think out of those 3, I would probably lean towards Craig, Greenwood, Kenny Anderson last. But, Cincinnati fans, I know the Ohio guys that listen to me probably get on me. I get it. Kenny Anderson, MVP, blah, 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 blah. You could call that rationalizing, I suppose. And I'm suddenly reminded of the fortune cookie wisdom that you should never try to explain, since your friends don't need it and your enemies won't believe it anyway. So his reasoning for not selecting Belichick had nothing to do with Deflategate or Spygate. Quote, perhaps that affected some voters, perhaps not. I can't and won't try to speak for others. It's a condition of being a voter to not divulge the deliberations, he wrote. But the so-called cheating stuff is not at all the only possible explanation, because it certainly didn't ultimately influence my vote. Interesting. It's very interesting, but again, imagine, now hear me out. This guy covers writes for the Kansas City Star, covers the NFL, he covers the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, what happens when Andy Reid's up for enshrinement and he's on the list, and you have a New England writer or a Boston writer or an Eagles writer that decides, yeah, I'm not going to vote for him because he lost 42-7 against the Giants his last game as a head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. Or, yeah, I'm not going to vote for him. I'm just thinking about all the times he never ran the football and had no balance of attack, and always sat there after an Eagles loss and said, I got to do a better job of getting the players in position to win games. Time's yours. They're going to totally gloss over all the Kansas City stuff and the accolades and the Super Bowl wins and the divisional titles and the AFC championships. And you're talking about a top 5 head coach in career wins. Like, it make sense to me. And it makes no sense. Let's just call it for what it is. Let's just call it for what it is, right? The bottom line is they didn't want to vote for Belichick because of Spygate and Deflategate. Keep saying we can't talk NBA, but the ban on the NBA talk was only until Christmas. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware that you guys set forth a ban within the show, within the segments of the show. Now that you have so respectfully, and that's the key word, respectfully showed me the error of my ways, the ban is lifted. We are past the holidays. We are now allowed to talk NBA. Now, can I further the discussion? May I, if that's okay with you? When are we allowed to talk MLB hot stove, baseball hot stove, winter meetings? Can we dabble into that? Or should I wait until after the Super Bowl? Because now we got the inmates running the asylum, which is never a good thing. I mean, and we're talking baseball on the show because I love baseball. Yeah, we're talking baseball. We're talking AL East. We're talking NL East. We're doing it. Never? That's very pronounced. All right, so I just wanted to make that clear on the hoodie stuff. I did see that May showed up on the injury report. I wouldn't really much to do about nothing. If you are curious, the line is still sitting at 4.5, 45.5. And oh, by the way, you can certainly wet your whistle on Tuesday because we have the Pro Bowl on a friggin' Tuesday. Flag football, or whatever the hell they decide to do. Let me squeeze in one more. Matty Ice chimes in. Q, I think it's subjective when you start talking about these Hall of Famers. I think it's a little more clear with the coaches when we look at the body of the work, but the players can always be in a subjective and debatable conversation. 100%. 100%. And that's fair. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that statement. It's a good statement. It's a good comment. And you also got to factor in different eras, right? You have to. Like Kenny Anderson had 4 or 5 seasons where he won 10 or more games. It might have been 4 seasons. Also, 12-4 was the MVP that year. They went to the Super Bowl. They fell behind 21-0 fast against the 49ers. Bill Walsh, in his brilliance, basically said, hey, man, give them the middle of the field. Don't give them any sideline. Keep that clock running. And they won the Super Bowl, the 49ers. And the dynasty began. Kenny Anderson was 91-81 in his career. He threw for 32,000 yards, 197 touchdowns, and he also threw 160 picks. So we're comparing, again, apples and oranges, the eras. That's the problem. We're now sucked into the stats right away. You know, Pro Bowls weren't really big back then. The All-Pro was. But for one season, Ken Anderson was the best quarterback in pro football, and that was 1981, hands down. 29 touchdowns, 10 picks. He threw for over 20 touchdowns, 1, 2, just twice in his career. Just twice. But again, it's all about eras. That's all. I mean, I had someone actually come on the air once and debate me Roger Staubach's merits, his career. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, his numbers stunk. I was like, do you understand that they didn't really have quarterbacks under center, the shotgun back then? Do you understand that Staubach, every year he was winning 10, 11 games? You know, there was like 1 or 2 years aside from his first couple of years. And oh, by the way, you know, if you go back, what was it? 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, right? We don't even get into the military service for Captain Comeback. He started his career at the age of 27. I mean, Roger Staubach, hands down Hall of Famer. Like, I don't, it's not even debatable. It's just funny that we forget how good these quarterbacks were. And it was a different time. That's all. It was a different time. He was part of that future selection in the draft, which was crazy. The Cowboys, the NFL actually allowed the Cowboys to draft him 1 year before his college eligibility because he was 4 years out of high school and he had 4-year military commitment to Naval Academy. So he did not step out on the field as a pro until he was 27. These guys now, they're 19, they're 20, they're 21. You're talking 6 years. So he lost 6 years of his career. He was actually drafted by the Chiefs. But no, Hall of Famer. Eras are different. That's all. That's all I've been always trying to say. All right, we'll talk a little more about this tomorrow. I got to start wrapping it up. Got hoops later on tonight. As I mentioned, you guys are fantastic. Always chiming in with me. I greatly appreciate it. A little more NFL tomorrow, a lot more of the NBA. We'll start to talk a little more about Hall of Fame, maybe some other players that might be up in the future. So we'll have a little fun with that conversation. We'll have you guys kind of create your list of guys that you think should be in the Hall of Fame that have not come yet to pass in the Hall of Fame. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, 3 Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. And, of course, our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. 2 locations, 1450 Clemens Road in Deptford and Mount Laurel. You guys have a wonderful Sports Thursday. Back in the saddle mañana on a What the Frig Football Friday edition of On Cue. Until then, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.